Here I am again, tossing and turning, trying to find rest, but uncertainties keep churning. 3 a.m. burdens weigh heavy on my heart, my family, friends, my future. That's what tops the charts. I'm overwhelmed, I'm exhausted, and yet sleep won't come. This alarm, it'll blare soon, signaling another day has begun, and so I will push through. I'll put on a smile, but all the while, my worries continue to pile and pile and pile, and I want to scream, take it. I don't want this anymore. But then that's when I hear it, this knocking on my door. This voice says, hang on to it. You're stronger than you know. Don't give up now. You can do this on your own. And the crazy thing is, I believe him and his schemes. So I just trudge along and never change one single thing. I forge ahead thinking, this time will be better than before. But it's never less. It's always more. And that knocking, it grows louder with every disappointment and doubt. Let me in! He pretends to be my friend and then he rips my insides out. And the more I try to fix it, I feel weaker and weaker, and the light that used to be here, it's just a little flicker. And I'm a Christian. You'd think I'd be in a different position. Why is it so easy for him to put a hold on my mission? But look around. I can't go down any farther. I'm trying to carry it all and stand tall, but I just feel smaller and smaller. Getting kicked when I'm already down, forced on my knees, staring at this cold, hard ground. Like I'm meant to be here, broken on this floor. I can't believe I didn't see it before. Oh, God, please forgive me. There's something I've forgotten. On our knees is where Jesus raises the hopeless, fixes the broken. On our knees, the questions and doubts are subdued. That knocking fades away when Christ is pursued. On our knees begins the world's greatest exchange. Our struggles and pain for a life without chains. On our knees is where the battle is won, the victory clinched. Here comes the Son, so no, Satan. My story is not yours to complete. It's already been written. It doesn't end in defeat, so I am sick of living with you in these twisted, made-up shadows. I'm putting my faith in the one who's already won my battles, the one who looked death in the face and said I was worth it, hanging on the cross, beating the grave so that I could have purpose. His shield is never ending. His sword knows no bounds. Why am I still hanging on to all of this? Just focus. Focus on the crown. I surrender. I surrender to you, Lord, as I lift my hands in praise. Praise to the one who's guiding me, showing me the way. Praise to the one who never breaks a promise in red. I believe in your goodness. I believe what you've said. Come near to you and you will come near to me. I'm pressing against you, God, a small child on your knee. Everything I have is yours. This load is too much to bear. Your strength is my desire. Please, God, hear my prayer. Here it is, my white flag. I'm submitting to your lead as you meet my every need. Only you reign supreme. My God, my God, my God. I'm free.
Good to see everybody this morning. You're in the right place. I love it. You can be seated. I love marginal weather. That's my favorite kind of weather. It's not raining, but it's not sunny. What do? Church, it is, right? I love it. If you have your Bibles, turn to James chapter 4. James chapter 4. While we're doing that, we got a lot of people watching. The last few weeks, I don't know what's happened, but we've had the largest online engagement in the history of our online campus since we started it over 3 years ago. So first off, we got a lot of people watching. Frank, North Carolina, Roy and Missy in Alabama. I'm just going to shout out a few. Jane in Maryland, what's up? Rick and Lisa in Virginia, how are things going there? Gary and Becky in West Virginia, almost heaven. Anyway, Let's see, Patty and Jamie, how are you in Georgia? What's up? Becky in Oklahoma shouting it out today. Julia in Colorado, what's up? My Robinson family, also Heather in Canada. And Sevierville, give it up for our Greensboro family as well. Can everybody welcome everybody? If you have your Bibles, turn to James chapter 4. We start a new series this week called White Flag. It's going to be a 3-week series. It's not going to be long, but it's going to set the tone for the year. Because I do believe the key word to 2023 is surrender. We struggle with that word in the world in which we live. And a lot of us need to surrender. Surrender, I'm going to say this a bunch today, so hear me clearly. Surrendering is not the same thing as giving up, not when God is involved. So have you ever felt like this? We're going to kick off this week with this picture. It's a little weird. It'll come on the screen. But have you ever felt like this? Are you tired of getting hit with daily life? Just, you know what? I'm sick of the day-to-day. I just am so tired. I just feel like giving up. Who's ever felt that way? Who feels that way this morning? Raise them up high. Come on, let's be honest in church. People are like, I don't want to do this. I had a day, Wednesday night, we had 850 people come to church on Wednesday night alone. We had almost 400 last night, so we've had a huge week before Sunday. Wednesday night, I preached the message twice. We had 500 come to church at 5:30 on Wednesday. That's insane. Now, here's what I need from some of you. If some of you would go, Brent, how can I help the church? Come get out of this service and go to 7 o'clock on Wednesday night. You're like, is that it? Yes, that's it. I would love for you to do that. If a few of you are like, yeah, you know what? I need my weekends. Wednesday at 7 would be great. We're fixing to change our student ministry around just a little bit. You're going to hear about that in a few weeks, and it's going to be great. So we have room at the 7 o'clock Wednesday night service. I feel like we've got reservations at 4 or 9:30, right? But if you could do that, that would be great. Last night's incredible, but look at this service. Last week, the next service was larger than this service, literally no room at all. So, hey, we have 5 services. I'll preach 9 if y'all show up. I'm hoping for a Tuesday at noon service soon. I think that would be great, but... So Wednesday, I preached this message, and I'm thinking, all right, it was good. I went home on Thursday. Thursday was beautiful. It was a little warmer. It was windy. Giovanna had stuff to do. So I was on my back porch. I'm like, man, it's a nice day. I grabbed my wadded up hammock that was in the garage because it's wintertime, and I put it on this metal frame that we have on the back porch, and me and Cash, my dog, Cash jumped on me, and we were just kind of lounging in the hammock. When something happened, I didn't realize. I was just kind of laying there. I was totally vulnerable. I'm 2 feet off the ground. And I guess the hammock had dry rotted, sitting in the garage. And so all of a sudden it ripped. I hit the ground. There was a metal hammock frame and a crossbar, and my arm hit the crossbar right here. I thought I broke my arm. I got up, and my first thought was, if I broke my arm falling 2 feet off a hammock, I'm going to make something else up because that is not cool. I walk around, I'm hurting. Giovanna gets home, and my wife has a way of like, Brent, just rub dirt on it. What's your problem? Speaking of my wife, where's my sister and brother-in-law? Where are you? Somewhere. Stand up, Jeff, Natalie, and my nephew, Connor, with us this morning. Love y'all. You can be seated. So Natalie, Giovanna's sister, will say, yes, that is Giovanna. So we get home, we're cooking dinner, Giovanna and I, just there. We had this cast iron skillet. We had something in the oven. I was going to put it on the stove. I had my mitt on. I grabbed the cast iron skillet. I put it on the stove. I got waylaid. I took my mitten off, and then I grabbed the cast iron skillet again. Giovanna had opened the kitchen cabinet. When I'm coming up, I hit my head on the cabinet. And I thought to myself, today's not the day to unicycle or use a chainsaw or fly, right? I'm going to saran wrap myself. So I preached the message, and I thought, that is me Thursday afternoon about 4 o'clock. I'm like, I'm over it. I'm ready to throw in the towel. That was a bad throw right there. You ever felt like that? Now, all kidding aside, some of us are not just in a day, but we're in a season. We're like, I feel like that. I feel like throwing in the towel. That's a battle term. Wrestling, boxing. You have a manager in the corner. The fighter's getting beat to death. And there's that person like, I need to throw in the towel. This fight is over. Has anybody ever felt like that? All kidding aside, it's going to get serious for a little bit. Have you ever felt like just throwing in the towel? By the way, do you like my hoodie? Does it make me look fat? I like it, and I told you a few weeks ago we're going to be giving away something, and so February 8th, 11th, and 12th, all the services to every man, woman, and child, you all get a free hoodie. You're coming that week, aren't you? Yeah, I'm coming. Pastor Mike will guide you online how to get yours. There might be a shipping and handling cost involved, but you have to be present to win your free hoodie. And if you miss that week, the next week, they're $599. So be here, be a part of it. And it's this idea, it's going to be a symbol when we put it on to think about, hey, maybe there's been times in my life that I'm ready to throw in the towel. There are times in my life I just want to give up. And I know that's true because I asked you a few weeks ago to write on your communication card, Greensboro as well, and I got yours. Put your name and put a prayer request as you jump into this year, what you want me personally to pray for you about. No one has seen these but me. I spent almost 14 hours that I counted going over all of these cards, almost 1,500 cards, praying for you by name and your request. And if you read these requests, it's as I suspected, a lot of us struggle. So last week, my friend, Pastor Dan Seaborn spoke. Incredible. I mean, just incredible. If you missed it, I beg you. I'll use the word beg. I beg you to watch it. He unpacked Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans God has for us, plans to prosper us and bring good things to us and not to harm us. And some of us use that as a life verse. And Dan kind of unpacked it in these two stools. If you were here last week, he's like, this is what we think of as prosper in our society. We're like, man, easy street, right? Everything's going good. The kids are fine. The job's intact. Financially, I'm great, all of that. But yet he said this, to really prosper in life, maybe you need to sit in the hard seat, the seat that you don't understand why things are happening the way they're happening, because maybe those are the moments that we reach out to God the most. So have you ever felt like throwing in the towel? I sure have. In 1996, my mom and dad and my wife and I came to East Tennessee. Actually, we moved here in 1995. We planted Pathways Church in 1996. My dad was the senior pastor from 1996 until October of 2003. In October 2003, my dad and I swapped places. Dad was in his 60s, was born in a suit. Some of y'all know that. I'm me. I'm an acquired taste. Some of you are like, oh, yes, you are, right? So I was 33 years old. In 2004, we were on the 7th year of our stint in the Sevierville Civic Center. From really 1996 to 1998, if you don't know our church story, we rented the Seventh-day Adventist building on 66. They have church on Saturday. They allowed us to rent the facility from them and have church on Sunday for 2 years. We moved into the Civic Center, which was newly renovated in 1998. And from 1998 to 2008, 10 years, over 500 weeks, we set up and tore down and we did church there for a decade. Crazy. So on about the 7th year, when Dad and I transitioned from me being the associate and to being the senior pastor and Dad taking a back seat to that, life was tough for me. Didn't go well for the first couple of years. Jerry Thee, don't say a word, right? It just was kind of tough. I don't think people got me. I don't think I did a great job. I was doing my best. I knew that's what God had wanted me to do, but I was in a dark place. I always like to tell our membership classes, when Dad and I swapped places, we had 165 people that Sunday that we switched. And with my dynamic leadership, I drove us to 120 in the first 6 months. 165 people, we lost 45 people. So one particular Sunday, it went bad. I don't exactly know what happened. I do know what took place at the end of the service. I had an older lady come up to me. I was 34 years old at the time. It was right at the beginning of 2004, probably still 33. She grabbed me after the service. She scolded me. She said, "You're too young. You don't even know what you're talking about. Why would you even talk on the topic you talked about? You have no experience at all." And walked out the door. Merry Christmas, right? I mean, it was awful. I went home. I'll never forget this as long as I live. I went home. I sat at my kitchen table. I put my elbows on the kitchen table. I journaled it so I know exactly when this took place. I took my elbows on the kitchen table, my hands were in my head, and it was a Monday, and I hated life. I wasn't exactly thrilled at all to where I was, and I uttered these words. Ready? I remember it. I give up. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. This isn't working. My wife had walked into the kitchen. She's like, what are you doing? And I told her, she's like, well, has God called you to walk away from this? You're going to hate when I say this. But I'm like, well, I don't know what God said, but I'm not worried about what he's saying right now. I'm thinking about me. Who's ever felt that way? Let's be honest. You're like, hey, God could be in the equation or whatever. And Giovanna just said, hey, Brent, you need to pay attention to what God is saying to you, not just how you feel, because just because you feel defeated is not the end of who you are. That's the difference between a Christian and the world. So I stayed. I kept going. Every Monday I would write my mental letter of resignation. Every Monday for almost 2 years. Till one day, it all changed. I sat at the same kitchen table, and it was kind of my same deal. I'm an early person. I got up and I uttered these words for the first time. It really changed for me in 2005. Instead of I give up, I changed my verbiage. I said, Jesus, I surrender. You're like, well, that's the same thing. No, it's not when God is involved. God, I need to get out of my own way, and I need to let you work in my life. From that day forward, everything changed for me. Now, I'll say this about Dan's illustration last week. We look at this as easy street. We look at this as, hey, this is how we want to be prospering in life. Everything is great. I always think when you're blessed financially, whatever it looks like, that's a byproduct of really making a difference. And I never really ask God, hey, God, I want the easy street. I always ask God, I just want to make a difference. I want to kind of make an impact. I want my life to count for something. I don't want to just fledgle away and I just don't love that life where it's just, nobody cares at all. I just don't like that. I think most of us don't like that. And secretly, deep down, we're like, I just don't want to live my life that way, where it's nothing. I'm here today and gone tomorrow. I want to make an impact, but yet when you sit in that seat and it's a struggle, I really do believe this is the time where I just reached out to God the most and say, okay, I'm done. But yet, I'm not done in a way where I give up. I'm quitting to think about this. I want to walk away. God, I want you to use me. I'm done fighting this. If this is where you want me to be, and you've never said for me to go anywhere, then you know what? I'm surrendering to you. I have a feeling some of you need to hear that. Some great quotes. I like these quotes. This quote will come on the screen. The moment of surrender is not when life is over. That's when people go, well, my life will be over. No, that's when life begins. The moment that I surrendered, I really do believe was the moment that God began to percolate in my heart and mind and many hearts and minds in our church that God was going to do something different, extraordinary, unique in this church body. And you can't debate it. Because it's true, what has happened here is an unexplainable move of God. And it's all because I think the key word was surrender. If you want God to move in your life, surrender. Your life won't be over, your life will just begin. I love this next quote as well. Ready? Surrender is the simple but profound wisdom of yielding to rather than opposing the flow of life. You're like, Brent, that is deep, my man. Woo! Wednesday night, you could have seen them. They're like, Brent, I've worked all day. Wow. It's all right. Let's bring it to a common denominator, as we Pathwaysians do. Can you tell me what's going on here? This next video, let me see what you think. What is happening here? What are you looking at? What is the finger pointing to? Wednesday, they all screamed the ocean. Thank you. But what is he pointing to? Anybody? Riptides. Who's ever been caught in a riptide? Let's see your hands. Great analogy, right? Could be a beautiful day. You never know what a day holds. You'll wade out into the water. There's a riptide. It'll pull you away from shore. Before you know it, you could be a couple hundred yards away from shore. The natural instinct in life is to fight. Ready? I'm going to swim back as hard as I can, and you will not beat the current. I promise you, you won't beat the current. You'll get tired. You won't want to, but you're going to throw in the towel because you will get weary. And that's how people die. We have people connected to this church that sit in this church every week that have had family members die in the last few years of a riptide. So what do? You gain a little bit of wisdom, you gain a little perspective, you get your wits about you. Even in the current, even in the storms, you go what? You know what I need to do? I need to go with the flow of the current. I need to let the current kick me out. Then you swim parallel to the beach and you swim back in. But most people don't think about that in the panic of life's situations. So what is the key to surviving a riptide? Is you surrender to the flow of the current. What is the key to surviving life? You surrender to God's will and God's way. God is God and you are not. I am not. God, let me get out of my own way. James chapter 4, if you have your Bibles, is going to be a key verse. I think this key verse of Scripture is hugely important. Before we jump into that verse, though, there's a quote from an old Methodist preacher that I love. I think old Methodist preachers, old preachers in general, man, they had so much wisdom, and it's great to glean on that wisdom. And this is what William Booth said, an old preacher that lived in the late 1800s. He said, "The greatness of a man's power is measured in his surrender." Boy, that is so against our culture today. Our culture is, no way am I going to surrender. This is most of our motto. This next picture is the motto right at the gym. Never throw in the towel. Use it to wipe up the sweat and keep on going, man. That's how many people, that's your attitude. You're like, that's me. I'm not throwing in the towel. I'll be a wuss. But here's what the Bible says, and it's interesting. You can't get away from it. I know none of us like to raise the white flag. I mean, we think, I don't like that. Our culture teaches us failure is not an option. So what do? You see it every day. People overextend their time, their abilities, overextend their resources. And with all the overreaching, it still leaves us at the end of our rope. And what I learned in 2005 is I sat at my kitchen table and I said, God, I surrender. I'm not giving up. I surrender to you. Whatever that looks like, I'm going to walk in your will and your way. And here's what I realized. As I surrendered to the Lord, my giving up was replaced with God lifting me up. So James, the brother of Jesus, leader of the Jerusalem church at the time, would write this book. It's really known as the how-to book of Christian living. And here's what he says, and listen to the countercultural message that this is what God is after. Ready? Chapter 4, starting in verse 6. God opposes the proud. We see pride in everything that we do today, but he shows favor to the humble. Submit yourselves then to God. The word submit is interchangeable with the word surrender. Yielding your way to another. Submit yourselves to God, resist the devil, he will flee from you. Come near to God and he will come near to you. Wash your hands, you sinners. Purify your hearts, you double-minded. Humble yourselves before the Lord. And here's the promise that everyone is looking for. Everybody. And God will lift you up. We all want to be lifted up. 1 Peter echoes these same words throughout the New Testament. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. When we humble ourselves before the Lord, we ask, hey, God, I need you. I'm seeking your hand. It'll come on the screen again. Write it down and remember it. Surrendering is not the same thing as giving up. Not when God is involved. Submitting to God means humbly placing ourselves at his feet. And I love this quote. Under the care of God's mighty hand, we release the need to know the when, the why, and the hows of life. We all want to know, God, when's this current situation of mine going to be over? Why is this happening to me? How do I get out of this mess? That's how we all kind of talk. The details of our day beat us up. But don't give up in defeat. Surrender. It's different. Why is it so hard to surrender? I struggle with it. I still struggle with it. I'm going to give you a verse that God has given me recently, and you're like, man, that's different, but that's how God talks to me. I think God gets ticked off at me sometimes. Brent, Look at everything that you have gone through. Look what I have done in your life, and you're still a whiner. Can anybody relate? Let's see some hands. All right, you're like, oh my God, that's me. Why is it so hard to surrender? Here it is, ready to come on the screen. It's simple as this. Surrender requires vulnerability. No one wants to be vulnerable. You know how I know? I ask you. Put your name and your prayer request that I alone, my eyes only, will see this and pray for you. 30%, I counted, 30% of these cards have no name. 3 out of 10. Why? I don't want the pastor to know I have problems. People actually say that to me. They would rather go counsel somewhere else, and they've actually said these out of their mouth. They're like, well, preacher, I don't want you to know I have any problems. Everybody look at me right here. Ready? I'm not dumb. You got a lot of problems. I got problems. Can you believe that? That's how people are, though. We have this lens, social media, whatever. We want everybody to look. We don't put the pictures of the family arguing. That's what I want to see. I'm like, this was my family vacation. And somebody will put a video of people knocked down, drag out, screaming at the kids. Shut up! You're going in there. Stop! We don't. You know that's the truth. That's how we are. Nobody wants to be vulnerable. So I'll be vulnerable. Most of you know my story, but I asked this question, or I'm going to ask you this question because I think it's something that you need to think about. You know, what is God calling you to surrender to? For me, it's definitely worry. I'm a worrier. I like to try to control things. We all do. I want to make sure that our church goes and we're all really healthy, but yet the world has beat us down and we're like, man, I don't think I can control anything. It's crazy what is happening in our world. Well, in 2016, some of you know, most of you know, if you're new, it's worth telling because I think a lot of you can see yourself in my story. In 2016, after my family and I, my wife and our kids, we got back from one of the best vacations we've ever had before. It's the last time we actually went on a cruise. It was a great cruise, great time, great weather. It was awesome. We get home. Church was flying high. We were in the middle of a renovation, expansion. Remember, in this auditorium, we were a month or two away from kind of extending the wall and going from 480 seats to what we have now, 750 seats, and God was moving. And we get home, and the very next day, my world crashed around me because my dad would come to my house. He would get out of the car. We were burying our dog. Some of you remember that. Dad walked up the hill to try to hug Mason, his grandson. He was too weak to do that. He had a lot of health issues. He stumbled back a long way down just an unlevel ground, and he squared the back of his head on the brick wall of my home. I rounded the corner because we saw it happening, and Dad kind of went out of our vision. I rounded the corner. There was my dad, who I loved, face down in the dirt, gouge in his head, blood everywhere. I grabbed him, I flipped him over, he wasn't breathing, I don't know CPR, I shoved him in the chest, and thankfully he kind of sprung back, he started to breathe, but yet he was so bloody, blood was it was all over me. I just sat there and I heard my mom as she rounded the corner, and you would not want to hear my mom's screams and just what took place at that moment. So much stress, post-traumatic stress, I would learn later, is what I was going through. I just said, God, please don't let Dad die in my yard right now. He died 10 days later. He never really regained consciousness from that moment. My dad died on a Wednesday at 2:19 p.m. I preached at 7 o'clock, less than 5 hours later. My mom said, Brent, you're stupid. And I'm like, Dad would have wanted me to do that. From that moment forward, I'm just like, you know what? I need to kind of help the church through this, my family through this, and I'm just going to and I didn't realize what was taking place. There was a lot of pressure being put on me, a lot of loneliness, I felt alone. I'm like, man, I can't believe what took place, and a lot of just emotional things happened, and so it all manifested January the 5th, 2017. I had a panic attack for the first time in my life. Some of you know this moment. I thought I was going to die. I got up, put my sweatpants on. I called 911. My lovely wife was laying in bed. She's like, you're okay. Go take a Tums. When she got up and she realized something was really wrong, she sat there with me. The ambulance came. They took me. Everything was fine. I had just a full-blown panic attack. Never had it in my life. I never understood it. Never really had one like that again, but boy, it began an odyssey for about almost 3 years, till really beginning of 2020, where I had to take some medicine to sleep at night. The demons came at me in the darkness. I struggled with all of that. Just, man, I overwhelmed. That moment really showed me I couldn't control anything. I couldn't believe what just took place. I missed my dad. I still miss him today. The weeks that followed that panic attack, my doctor who was here last night, this is how vulnerable I had to become, that my doctor would come to my house because he said, Brent, you call me when it's going to hit you again. And it, all of a sudden it started to bubble up, and I felt all of this anxiety wash all over me, that Dr. Justice literally came to my house and sat on the edge of my bed. I'm a grown man in my 40s at the time, and he held my hand till I went to sleep. You're like, all right, Brent, you're being vulnerable. And here's what I know, right? Surrender has got to be a daily choice. Some of us, when you get to those moments in life, and I talked to people last night that walked out of church and says, Brent, I relate to you. Thank God after 2020, I've learned to breathe through it, pray through it, seek God's face. But there are times where all of a sudden I'll wake up in the middle of the night, and it's always midnight to 2 a.m. for me. The demons come in the darkness. I got off that medicine in 2020, thank God. My wife, you know what? She has learned. Thank God for her. She's learned if I have those moments and I'm like, Javon, I just feel so overwhelmed and I can't sleep. She'll know it. She'll wake up and she'll just hold me. And you're like, wow, that is way too much information. But read those cards. Every fourth one is depression and anxiety. All of us suffer in silence. We don't want to be vulnerable. We throw a lens on everything and like, well, that's just life. That doesn't have to be life. Remember, there's a difference between a Christian and the world. There is a flare, a signal, a rescue flare that signals in our heart and brings us hope. And hope is everything. And hope is found in our relationship with Jesus Christ. And I don't know why everybody wouldn't want that, but everybody forges ahead on their own like, oh, look at me. That's just a sign of pride, and you're getting nowhere, and you have nowhere to go. You have no clue what to do. You're just going to struggle on with depression and anxiety and be overwhelmed. Why don't we just surrender and say, you know what, maybe the key to my life, God, I surrender. Maybe the hard times is the right chair. When we reach out to God and say, God, I need you. So God has once again spoken to me. I love it. I love God's word. It's sharper than a two-edged sword. I love when I read God's word. And I was praying this last season for a new verse. Like, God, I need a new verse. I'm just ready for a new verse. I'm hoping for something comforting and something amazing, and I just need it. You know me. And God's like, yeah, I know you. And here's the verse that God gave me, right? From the book of wisdom, Proverbs, chapter 26, verse 11. As a dog returns to its vomit, so a fool repeats his foolishness. Thank you, God. I was hoping for something a little more comforting there, but maybe that's how God needs to speak to me. Now, my dog, Cash, he's cool. He does not eat his vomit. Miranda's dog, Maverick, that dog's crazy. The dog will throw up, look around, and go, well, it's still good, and proceed to eat it. And then lick you in the face, right? I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible. But have you ever thought about that verse? And I want to close with this. I got a lot to say, but we're going to kind of close this down. How many times has God spoken to me about my fears over the years, teaching me and reminding me as I read His Word about the foolishness of worry? But yet, how much do I worry? How many times has God encouraged me to cast my anxiety on Him? He is trustworthy in every situation. But there I am, like a fool, worrying again, like a dog. Come on, everybody. Returning to his vomit. That was a little weird, wasn't it? I know I did that. I don't know how to do that. Here's a prayer. Ready? I'm going to give you a couple. Lord, I surrender. I know you got this. You'll take care of me tomorrow, just like you always have and you always will. The benefits of surrendering God, we're going to talk about that the next few weeks, are amazing. Surrendering God does bring us to have a much closer relationship with Him. The Bible says this, back to James chapter 4, verse 8, now the New Living Translation, come close to God and He will come close to you. It says it right there. Wash your hands, you sinners. Purify your hearts, for your loyalty is divided between God and the world. That's where most of us live. Surrendering equals peace. Everybody wants peace. It's time to surrender. My son, Proverbs 3, 1 and 2. Do not forget my teaching, but keep my commands in your heart, for they will prolong your life many years and bring you peace and prosperity. Prosperity is not the prosperity the world says. Well, easy street, we've got everything. Prosperity is, hey, God, these are the moments that I look to you the most. I've learned surrendering to God promotes good health. It's amazing that people will take God out of the equation and still talk about the benefits of surrender. It's such a God thing. Proverbs 4, 20 and through 22, it won't come on the screen. My son, pay attention to what I say. Turn your ear to my words. Do not let them out of your sight. Keep them within your heart, for they are life to those who find them and health to one's own whole body. We're integrated beings. Spiritually, yes, we're spiritual beings in a physical body. Emotionally, mentally, all of those things matter, and surrendering to God brings peace. It brings health. It's what we were designed to do. So a couple of things I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you a little white flag. It's actually a linen strip that Becky Williams, she cut every single one for us. I would love for you to make it as a bookmark. Put it somewhere if you want to take it home and you want to write on it with a Sharpie. Hey, God, this is what you're dealing with me when it comes to the word surrender. What do I need to surrender? Write it down and keep it somewhere. I was hoping we would bring it back all 3 weeks, but I don't think that's possible. So I will say if you don't bring yours back next week, you can't get in. Sorry. We'll give you another one. But I just love this little tangible thing just to put somewhere. I'm putting this in my Bible as a bookmark and saying, God, these are things that I need to once again surrender to you. The last is this. When you leave here, you'll get a surrender prayer. It's a card. The QR code on the bottom is what Pastor Mike talked about as well. You can scan that, jump on this 21-day devotional reading plan dealing with the word surrender. But this prayer is what I want you to pray. I'm going to pray this. I would love for you to, for the next 3 weeks, pray it. I'm going to read it to you. It'll come on the screen and you'll get it when you leave. But this is what we need to be doing right here. Listen to this prayer. Father, you know the issue you've been speaking to me about, surrendering to you. What is that issue that God really wants us to give to Him? You know just how much I struggle in this area. Thank you for this reminder that when I choose to surrender to you, there are amazing benefits. Lord, I long for the closer relationship I can have with you when I surrender and the joy I know this will bring me. I long for greater peace and the benefits to my mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health when I just decide to do things your way. Father, please help me in the power of your Holy Spirit to turn from my own way of handling my issue and give it over to you completely. In your strength, I choose to do that now. Please give me grace to keep on surrendering and walk in your ways day after day after day. In Jesus' name, amen. God, thank you for this moment. With every head bowed and just eyes closed, here's what I need to ask you. If you're like Brent, this message, even though, yes, you talked about your story, but yet this message resonated with me. I struggle with that word surrender as well, and I needed this reminder today. If that is you and you're like, Brent, this one was for me, I want you to raise your hand very high, as I expected. You could put your hands down. God, thank you for the many hands that were raised. Thank you for the opportunity we have to be here. This is not optional. This is needed in our lives. We're exposed to the truth, and the truth sets us free. God, when we learn to give up, when it comes to you and surrender to your will and your way, that doesn't mean we walk away from all the things in life, but we keep on walking and we learn to have you guide and lead us. You begin to lift us up, and things happen that is sometimes so hard to explain. But God, I've learned at the end of, really in my life, when I come to the end of things and I'm like, I can't deal with this anymore, in my give up and surrendering to you is when you lift me up and everything has changed.